And where do you, Mary, where do you go to check up? Do you use like a law dictionary? What do you use to check this up?
I'm trying to think, where did I look that up? I think I looked up the word Canada in the Interpretations Act, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that might have been it. And the word includes, but you got to remember, there truly is a language called legalese. I mean, it truly does exist.
What did you call it? Say it again.
It's called legalese.
Uh-huh.
Like, it really does exist, and it's the language of lawyers, of the bar.
Yes.
And they change the meanings, as you can see. I think includes is my favorite, but the other one is person, and person means corporation or legal fiction. It hasn't anything to do with man-woman. So when somebody says, "Well, you're a nice person," you know, I mean, when I hear that, well, actually, no, I'm not. I'm a woman. Maybe a nice woman, I may not be. But, so, you know, this is just sort of for the purposes of training. You know,
yes.
People up on their language, you know. But that's fun, and once you get over that, that's enough. But, but the words are absolutely incredible. For example, you'll always hear it in court. Or, you know, well, do you understand? Well, no, I don't understand, which means I refuse to stand under your jurisdiction. You haven't proven any authority over me, so no, I do not stand under it. I don't understand. And yet, they're pretending that what it means is, do you know what the hell I'm talking about?
Right.
Saying. It's not what they're saying, but it's what it sounds like. So they'll trip you up at any turn. And so it does help to know the meanings of a lot of these words, most of which will absolutely stun you when you go, what? Is that what they mean?
Yes.
I mean, it really is just, it's downright deception.
But I mean,
they're having fun with it.
Does this draw us back to the those who began this system? I mean, again, I'm thinking back to the old kind of merchants and those who were the initial kind of traders between nations, and that they were setting up a kind of a artificial system to operate outside the normal law of the land, so to speak, and that when they were doing this, they could also consequently supplant this later onto the law of the land, and now everyone is actually operating within this law of water. So do you think there is a connection? If you go back a little bit, I mean, we could talk about the Templars, what have you. We can talk about the originators of the banking system itself, right? Isn't there a big connection there?
Yeah, I think you're right, and I confess I'm not completely up to speed on the history, but you're absolutely accurate about the fact that it all did start on the high seas, and it had to do with ports and the seas and piracy, and in other words, England allowed certain pirates to steal certain the goods from certain ships, just not English ships. It was it's barbaric,
yes.
You know, and how this all came about. And yes, it all had to do with trading, and I'm sure the East India Company, and all this comes into play. Well, then, in order to control the people on the land, they just carried it over.
Yes.
And they used the same words, birthing, and so essentially, and even we call our bodies vessels.
Yes.
They're vessels. Like, you know what I mean? It's so absurd.
And you know, it's like we're talking about this idea that, I mean, just look at the word bank, for instance, right? That this is I think Jordan Maxwell and another guy called Jason Whitney did a lecture about this a while back. Where I listened to this, very interesting, and they were talking even about the fact that there's even in regards to currency or the currency or the flow of money has to do with water. And even the fact that you're being charged, that this has to do with electricity and things of this nature. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yes. It's very accurate. And charge and closing the circuit, and that's why we say we close the accounts. And, as you say, the bank of the river, it's all about water. And then, of course, I guess you could say, well, we're 80% water or 75% water. So maybe it applies to us in some surreptitious manner.
In some esoteric way, they've found a way to kind of supplant this, and I mean, in a way, it's as you say, it's logical in that sense then, but again, it's not applicable to what we actually are want out from the system, because again, this is a system that has been subsequently or afterwards, if you like, been supplanted above the natural or the real system that was there to begin with, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you know, and this is why when we write a lot of documents these days, we're very careful to say that, you know, we are a man, or in my case, a woman, born on the land. In other words, you don't get jurisdiction or authority over me because I wasn't birthed, and I wasn't birthed on water. I'm of the land, over which you have no authority unless I grant you it. So, yeah.
Yes. And, you know, before, Mary, you were talking about national debt, that's a big, originator, so to speak, why we've kind of gotten in this mess that we're in right now. That implies to me, at least, that you know, that's this big international kind of organizations that are behind the creation of this. We could, for instance, then talk about the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Do you think that they are, you know, a big crook, so to speak, in this matter, and one of the originators on why we're living in the system we are living in right now?
Yeah, I wonder if you happen to see Aaron Russo's flick called From Freedom to Fascism.
Yes, I saw it a while back, yes.
Yeah, it's awfully negative, but he did mention one thing that I think is worth noting, and that is that he had a conversation with one of the Rothschilds. Wasn't it the Rothschilds?
With, I think it was Nicholas Rothschild or something like that, one of his sons, David's sons, I think.
Yeah, I think he's the baby, but I don't know. Anyway, and he essentially said, here's what's going to happen, and it was just crazy, and I think Rousseau kind of said, like, why are you doing that? And I don't recall a specific answer, but to me what came over was, well, because we can.
Yes.
Like, why not?
Yes.
It's a game for us. Congress is a game to these people. They created this craziness, and they thought, hey, we can rule the world. We can control all the people in all the world. And, hey, what fun. Let's try this.
Yes.
So I don't, you know, I'm not saying that they're evil. I actually think they are, but I'm not saying they're evil. I'm saying this is just their role on this planet. They just said, they came up with this scathingly brilliant concept, and they said, let's try this. Let's see what happens. So they implemented a banking system which was based on debt, which is insanity. As you know, is based on usury. And usury is ethically, or I guess I should say it's unethical.
Yes.
Because it's just something you would not do to somebody you love.
Exactly, and the important thing here as well, I think, that you mentioned is that they haven't asked permission from anyone to do this. They just kept themselves in a position just to do it. They have done it, and I'm drawn back to that old statement that if you're, I don't know what the originator of it is from, but it basically states that, if you're dumb enough, so to speak, to go along with it, then you kind of deserve to go along with it. And that's the kind of mentality behind some of these people, that they have this idea that, if you're not looking at the details and studying the system that you're involved in, you're potentially might be fooled by it. And to a certain extent, I agree with that, because you need to know what the system is all about, right? If you're especially if you're in a system that is that you can utilize, because what you have explained for us here is that if you're in this structure, in this system, you can actually use it to your benefit. But that means that you have to be smart enough in order to learn how to operate it. Isn't that right?
That's right. And the thing that we find most annoying, of course, is that most people don't even want to know this.
Yes.
And so we're forced to walk away and say, well, darn it all, watch out. And especially people, who are, the old, you're never a prophet in your own land. You can say it to your friends, and they just sort of say, well, I don't want to talk about that right now. And I think, well, okay, you can only lead a horse to water, but if they have no interest in their own personal survival, then, it's like I can't want something for someone more than he wants it for himself. So,
yes.
I think they're going to be out of luck, and then they'll wonder why. They'll wonder what happened. And yes, I do think it's our job. Now, here's what we have against us, of course, is a fraudulent education system.
Yes, of course.
Frauds.
Of course.
Talk about law